What's up, friends? I'm Thag, and this is Thag's Dino Reviews. And I hope you had a good Christmas and a safe New Year. I really do. And I hope that in the future you'll have a lot of prosperity. 2023 might be your year. I can tell you one thing it will not be. It will not be the year of the dinosaur. Because it's tough. I mean, we're going to have a real uphill slog before this thing is over. Anyway, I promised that I would give you the tour around the Mystery Dinosaur 2019. And unfortunately, I have not been able to get a lot of information. Most of what I know, you know as well, because one, most of it's on the internet. Two, I've gotten a few pieces of information, but still nothing really substantial. But anyway, let's go over what we know. The Goots, I think that's how it's pronounced, a Goots auction house in 2018, Clyde Goots, put up an Allosaurid for sale known as the Mystery Dinosaur. And the reason it was called the Mystery Dinosaur was because it had some extra dentition. There were certain small anomalies in the pelvic girdle, and just in general, they felt this was enough to assign it either a new species or a new genus. So it was to be assigned to one of those two. Anyway, it started off with the usual flim-flam and rhetoric that they all do. And it starts with the same anomalies that all these auctions start with. The paleontologist that found it did not want to be identified. The seller did not want to be identified, nor did the buyer want to be identified. So as a result, we don't know a whole lot about where it came from or where it's going. What we do know is what they've told us, and they being the auction house vis-a-vis through the paleontologist that supposedly found it. They claim they'd been working on it since 2013, and it was on private land and the sale was perfectly legal. That's great. Then, and I have no problem with that if that's what the case is, because it is perfectly legal. Now, as far as the auction house goes, they hyped it, of course, and they offered a number of things on it. In addition to the fact that it was unique and all this sort of thing, they also offered naming rights. But that's not quite the way it works. You can't buy yourself into a name. It has to be published through a scientific paper that's been peer reviewed, and there's a number of things that have to go on with the International Code of Nomenclature. So, I don't know what they were thinking there. Anyway, there were a number of science writers, freelance science writers, that were covering this. Now, 18 months before, there had been another Allosaurid sold, and this was, by the way, at the Eiffel Tower. And the Goots company again sold a Allosaurid 18 months before for $1.4 million. Now fast forward 18 months, and suddenly here we have another Allosaurid up for sale. And again, by the time all the hoopla and all the hype goes on and everything is done and the dust settles, this one sells in less than 18 months for $2.3 million. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, it was, maybe a unique specimen and that sort of thing. Well, there were a number of paleontologists that were not affiliated with the Agoots firm, and as a result, they came up with quite a bit of different take on it. Thomas Carr, paleontologist and T-Rex specialist, and really well noted, I've seen many of his lectures, said they were hyping it, that it was just an allosaur that had a couple extra dentition and maybe something slightly different. Ken Carpenter, another really great, now retired, but really great paleontologist. I've read a couple of his books. I've read 3 or 4 of his books, and the man knows what he's talking about. And he didn't seem impressed that it was a new genus or species. Anyway, so there it goes, and we go back, and it sells for $2.3 million in only 18 months. That's $900,000 more than an allosaurid that they sold 18 months earlier. Okay. And of course, everything is anonymous and has remained that way. Now, there were a number of freelance staff writers for Popular Mechanics, if you can believe that, CNN, New York Post, a whole range of media outlets. And I got to tell you, I have to tell you, they are tough to get a hold of. They have a vetting process. They don't want to answer questions, and they just ignore you, and you can't get through to them. It's just that simple. And of course, the auction house doesn't want to talk to me either, because they're not going to tell anybody what the disposition of these animals are today. Now, of course, one of the hypes, one of the mantras is that they feel that this tight-knit community of collectors eventually gifts these skeletons in perpetuity to museums around the world. I have found that not to be the case. And the only 2 that I know of, that of the last 8 or 9 since 2018 that have gone to a museum are, 1, the dueling dinosaurs, which went to the North Carolina Museum of Natural History. Now, as I had said before, and I wasn't completely sure, the reason that happened was because Dr. Lindsay Zano approached Clayton Phipps about buying the dueling dinosaurs. Why did she do that? Very simple. It did not sell at auction as he originally wanted. And they offered $6 million, and he had been waiting and didn't know what to do. He was involved in a court case with it. That had been resolved. The ownership was free and clear, but he couldn't get any takers. He claims that he approached several museums and they weren't interested. One of the problems with a lot of their stuff is when they sell it, it's still in matrix. That's a big deal. But anyway, Lindsay Zano approached him and they offered $6 million. He accepted, and benefactors of the North Carolina Museum of Natural History ponied up the $6 million. That's it, period. They came up with the money, no matter how you say. But it goes to an accredited museum. A lot of us that are watching this are thrilled that Dr. Zano is going to be running this thing and doing the proper work on it. They've got a whole team working on it, and this particular specimen is going to prove to be absolutely fantastic. It's going to reveal a ton of information about dinosaurs, about theropods, about ceratopsians. I hope I live long enough to be able to see some of the benefit that will come from that. It will take some time, but it's looking good. Now, Phipps originally wanted, as I suspected, when he first put it up for auction, he wanted $9 million. And when that didn't happen, he wound up getting embroiled and involved in this lawsuit. And once he got that straightened away, then I think he saw some of the light. And a really valuable specimen wound up going to North Carolina, and I'm glad it did. And it'll be there in perpetuity, and it'll be able to be studied by scientists from around the world. Okay, the second of about 8 major dinosaurs was Stan the T-Rex. Stan sold for a whopping $31.8 million, but to be fair, and again, the buyer decided that he did not want to give his name out initially. Eventually, a good sleuth traced him down, and it's going to Dubai. Now, you might think, wow, those guys. Well, they are building a natural history museum, and supposedly, according to the reports I've read, the skeleton will be available for study. It will be in an accredited museum, and the animal will be there in perpetuity. So those two, I even though it's way far away, it's around halfway around the world, it still is a significant step forward. And I do praise them for doing that. Now, if they don't, and they decide to alter course here, then I'll be less than happy, and I'll say something about it. But for the time being, I think their museum is due to open in 2024, late 2024, somewhere in there. And supposedly everything will be available for any scientist that applies. Okay, great. Now, as far as that goes, that's it. I have not been able to get any other information. I don't know what happened to the juvenile T-Rex skeleton that was on eBay for $2.95 million. I've been unable to find out anything. There was a sauropod that sold for the same skeleton of an allosaurus. They both sold at the same auction. It went for $1.4 million and into thin air. I have no idea where it went. The iguanodon, I don't know if it even sold. If it did sell, it's being kept under wraps. And I felt that was a juvenile also. Maximus, the T-Rex skull only, no axial skeleton. Don't know. Shen was pulled off the auction block. There was a Gorgosaurus that sold for $6.1 million, and that too has went into thin air, or at least as far as I can find out. Now, if there's anybody watching this, please, please, please contact me on the comments section. Let me know. Give me something I can at least research and fact check and find out. Let's see, what else was there? Oh, there was of course, Big John the Triceratops. We don't know where he went either, after selling for a whopping $7.7 million. So you can see the trend here. And again, I can't get through to any. They don't want to talk. These freelance reporters that I've contacted, you have to go through a vetting system just to get their email, and so far none of them have gotten back to me. That's it. And I'll be honest with you, even some paleontologists, I'm afraid, don't think we have quite the crisis that I think we do. But anyway, we'll keep working on it. We'll keep looking, and I'll keep searching to find out if I can find out. The auction houses tell us that they're all these skeletons. This is part of their mantra, that even though they're jewels of the earth and that they belong to all of us, well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you who they really belong to. They belong to the super wealthy. And the super wealthy does not necessarily want to go ahead and share this with anybody else. It's for them and them only. And If you think that it's not hurting museums, you are wrong. The more specimens we get on a specific species, the more we know about it, and the more we can fill in the picture of life in the Mesozoic. They hurt the science when they buy these things. They hurt kids, children. I bet there isn't a person watching this right now that as a young child, their parents took them to a natural history museum and they were absolutely infatuated with the large dinosaur skeletons. That's just simply a fact. And it's often a child's first introduction to science. And a lot of kids, they may not go on to be paleontologists, but they do wind up in the sciences. It's a great thing. And the third thing that I think is critical is that it's American fossil heritage. Period. It's all of ours. It's no different than the cancel culture movement that's going on across the nation right now. I think it's a bunch of baloney. I think this is a bunch of baloney. Those fossils, hey, I understand about the life-altering wealth that one can achieve at an auction, but you have a bigger moral obligation to this nation. And I say that directly to the landowners. Do I want you to make some money for your trouble? Absolutely. I don't think there's any... Oh, just had an accident of some sort. Anyway, I just simply think that we have to come to some reasonable conclusion on this thing. So, anyway, my next post is going to be on a sauropod. It's not going to be a review where we just talk about the paint and the shape and this and that. I want to do a review where this animal has been sculpted to a certain degree, and really that degree has made it scientifically accurate right down the line. And that's what I'm interested in. Now, at the beginning of this video, you probably saw the vignette involving this poster. Oh, this is what fell. Guess I got too carried away there. Anyway, this is the poster. Okay, it's not really a poster. It's not really a drawing. It's not a cartoon. It's one thing. It's a warning. A warning that if we don't act soon, science is going to be out. You are going to be out. And the fat cats, the wealthy people around the world, the large corporations, all those that want to run your life are going to be calling the shots when it comes to American dinosaur skeletons. We need to start a program, or at least more than what I'm doing, to sicken people on the idea of owning fossil skeletons from the Mesozoic, from Western North America. This would be something akin to the fur trade protest in the 1970s. And now that worked really well. Very little fur do you see around, and endangered species are left alone because of that. This is the same thing. These skeletons are endangered and they need to be preserved. They belong to all Americans. Anyway, okay, I'm Thag. This is Thag's Dino Reviews, and I'll catch you on the rebound.